We got our 2015 Tahoe in the shop and it's bouncing like a baby buggy. Welcome to Tech Garage, presented by rockauto.com. Well, Brian, we went ahead and put the fronts on. I know you did a great job with that. Took it out on a test drive. What did you find?
You know, it felt really good. I liked how it drove down the road. Big improvement, over 100,000 miles on this thing. But the rear, with the jounce test, said, I still want to be replaced. So we got to get those rears swapped out too.
Yeah, you know, before you do that, this is a magneto-rheological, even though I could say that word.
That's a lot of syllables.
Ride. We'll call it MagnaRide from now on out. But your fronts, you got a couple demos there. Tell us about the fronts. Not so easy to do.
It wasn't so easy to do. There's a tremendous amount of technology at every corner of this vehicle, air, magnetics, all that. There's a wiring harness up here. We had to wrestle our way through that. But we got it out, got it replaced. I feel really good about that. The one question I have before you get into all this technology today is, why would you bring your makeup to the table?
Yeah, that's very expensive makeup, man. That's the MR fluid. We'll get that in a minute. But I'll tell you what, you get to work on the rear shocks and I'll actually show you how the system works. And that's what I said. It's a magno-rheological ride. GM calls it MagnaRide. You probably heard it before. How does it work? That's the magic of it all. You can see it have it laid out here on the table. And let's go ahead and start with the front shocks. Now, our front shocks, they're electrically driven. So I have a little electrical connector right here with two terminals that has to get pushed up and plugged in. Well, once that's plugged in, you have a computer right here that's sensing it, and we'll look at that in a minute. Now, on the rears, I actually have air shocks right here. These are air shocks, and they're driven by this air pump that's in the rear of the system. So as the air pump starts to drive it, it's going to lift it up or down as it goes. Now, how does it work? Well, you have these sensors right here. You actually have a front sensor. Now, the front sensor rides up and down and it tells the height of the vehicle. If it starts to go really fast, well, it knows it can do with the shocks I'm going to show you here in a second. The rear one's located right here. Once again, I want to know the height in the rear when I'm hitting bumps. What's going on? Well, what's going on over 1,000 times per second? So I'm talking about milliseconds of action. That computer is going to go ahead and it's either going to energize these or it's going to energize the air pump. Either way, we're going to get it under control. Now, let me show you the beauty and the magic of this system. Let's go back to the basics of shock absorbers. You know, we started out with the monotube shock absorber right here. It was just a single tube right here, and the single tube would allow the fluid to go past this little valving, and the valving determined how it bounced. These things control spring oscillations. Now, here's another one right here. This is a gas shock. Now, what makes it a gas shock? Well, there's a gas chamber right here. This gas chamber holds pressure on the liquid so you don't get any aeration in the system when it's going really fast. Now, speaking of going really fast, let's look at our MagnaRide system, our magno-rheological ride. This is pretty cool because I got it right here. This is the one that Brian took off the front of the car. You can see it leaked out all the fluid. Well, he asked about my makeup a little bit earlier. That big old blob is what was left in there. Once all the oil was out, that's all there was. There's supposed to be fluid in there. Now, look inside of here. This is pretty cool. You got the wires feeding down to these magnets in here. What do? Well, we energize it or de-energize it. We energize it, we make the fluid real thick, real viscous. It's harder to go through these chambers and it makes the ride very stiff. Once again, if I take it and I take the magnetism away from it, well, the fluid's going to become real thin and it's easy to flow through so you can get more of a bounce in the vehicle. Now, what's in there? It's called MR fluid. This is the coolest ever. I have some right here. We have some MR fluid. Brian called it my makeup. Nah, man, this is neat. So you can see it right here. This is about the viscosity of it. So what happens is right now it would be flowing through there. It would flow through real easily and it would be very bouncy. Now, if we want to stiffen it up, I have a magnet on a speaker right here. So I take it and I put it down on the magnet. Watch this. All of a sudden, man, you get this thick viscosity. I mean, that joker will hold up the spoon right there. Now, check this out. As soon as you take the fluid off, voila, turns into a thinner fluid. So I pick it up, bam. So if I had it up in the air like this and it was flowing, well, you got a nice spongy ride. Down here where it's thick, it's going to thicken it up. Does it in 1,000 times per second, mind you. It's watching that thing bounce. Well, speaking of bouncing, our 2015 Tahoe is going to need some attention on the rears. Brian's underway.
There we go. We got the nut on the top mounting bolt of this shock. Now, let's slow down so we can speed up the repair. We've got the new shock hung because that's as easy as it's ever been. But a really good tip, just good practice for you, anytime you get a chance to get a vehicle this large with this large of wheels and tires and a good look at what's going on underneath here, you should. A basic visual inspection. I've looked at the brakes, the caliper, the brake line. The pads look good. There's plenty of life left. No cuts on the rotor. Why am I looking at that? Just because I'm here. Now, the shock repair itself, as simple as it's ever been. Top bolt, bottom bolt. But this is not your grandfather's air shock anymore. You've got the inbound nipple where the airline sits on it. I'm going to show you how to clip that in a second. And of course, we've got circuitry here. Remember, John talked about 1,000 adjustments per second. This is a MagnaRide system with air ride at the back. So we've got to have that full control. I'll show you the ride height sensor in just a second. Also, before you pull the old shock out, do a shake test. Check it in the mount. See if anything's rattling. What's the condition of these bushings? Is any of that worn out? Are there any fluids leaking? Has this shock broken anywhere? This one looks pretty good, but we know we've taken it for rides twice now and it's not driving properly. So we got to replace these guys. So very simple with the top hung in there. Now here's another little tip for you. In the driveway, on jack stands or on a lift, we've all struggled with getting this mounting position just right. Use a jack, any kind of a small bottle jack or floor jack. Get this lined up so you don't need a drift pin, you don't need to smash your pinky, and this mounting bolt goes right back in. Get it in here, secure, there we go. The jack is your friend. All right, here's the ride height sensor John was talking about. You saw these lying on the table. This again, you think about it. There's a reading coming from here. It knows where the home position is. So as the suspension travels, it's reporting. Making an adjustment through the air compressor into the top of that shock. There's your full travel, the full circuit of keeping this vehicle stable in pretty much all conditions. So we'll reconnect the airline right here. It slides down on, you'll feel it, and then there's a clip. You may have to wrestle with this clip just a little bit. You can get a good look at it right here. It just spreads and then goes down over. Get my glasses up in, wrestle this guy a little bit. Be sure it seats down over. There we go. Try pulling that line off. It's not coming. I'm good. The sensor up here is reconnected. A little bit tricky up there to reach it. Get that in. I'm going to get these mounting bolts torqued up properly, top and bottom. I'll torque them a second time. Final visual inspection and we're good. So here's the good news. On the LS lesson, that beast of a project's coming together, and today we're playing with pistons. So stay with us on Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com.
LS lesson time. Welcome back to Tech Garage, presented by RockAuto.com. Boy, I'll tell you what.